Hello, everybody. Dear startups from all over the world, I wish you a warm welcome to the webinar Opportunities Through and After Corona Crisis. My name is Dominik Stute. I am responsible for foreign market development and new economy at the Chamber of Industry and Commerce in Dortmund. Today is already the 5th webinar in the context of our Startup Germany tour. We have already covered the topics Startup Ecosystem NRW, North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany's industrial heartland, the legal framework in Germany, and dealing with German strategies, international contracts, and import-export regulations. And today you can learn more about the opportunities regarding Corona. We open up our webinar series Access to Germany to all interested startups, so that all of you can get to know the exciting location NRW. But the series is initially intended as preparation for this year's Startup Germany tour. The tour will take place from 25th to 28th of October and will give startups from the InsurTech, Smart City and Logistics mobility sectors deep insight into these sectors and connect them with a lot of famous companies in NRW. The tour is organized by the Chambers of Industry and Commerce of the Ruhr area and the Chambers of Industry and Commerce in Düsseldorf and Cologne. And for sure, our German chambers abroad are involved to identify the startups that want to join. So if some of you are also interested in participating into the Startup Germany tour, feel free to contact me after the webinar. And we are very happy to have another strong partner with us, NRW.INVEST. They support us in realizing the tour and can help you to make your first steps in NRW. And they are organizers of the most webinars I just mentioned and of the webinar today. So many thanks to Christoph Sommer and Carolina Held, who support us on behalf of NRW.INVEST during the tour and today. I wish you an exciting webinar and hand over to Christoph Sommer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction, Dominik. So also a very warm welcome from my side from NRW.INVEST this afternoon. Depending on where you're located, maybe good morning or good night already. So we are also hosting today's webinar about opportunities, chances which can arise through COVID-19 and which came up also along our path. We are just a few sentences about what we are doing. NRW.INVEST is for more than nowadays 60 years already the state-owned economic development agency of the federal state of North Rhine-Westphalia. We are located deep in the western part, and if I'm going to share my screen now, I can also show you a little bit more about this. Just a few seconds, then it should start now. As you will see in the next slide, then you can see on this map that we're quite centrally located in Europe, with the state capital Düsseldorf, where our headquarters is based, but our organization is covering with 16 offices worldwide in the meantime. Also most of the important global markets, but nevertheless you will always find a dedicated person here on the ground in our headquarters who can help you further with your request. And first of all, we are the one-stop agency, as said, state-owned, for, of course, tech companies, but also young startups, entrepreneurs who are looking to expand their business to Europe and quite naturally also looking then at Germany as one of the major markets. As you see here, with more than 160 million people, you can reach within a very short radius of only 500 kilometers. And we might be of help in the end with any kind of request you might have. You come along. Of course, you should be ready for the German market in that perspective. You should always have a product. Also, some customers abroad have left maybe the seed phase into Series A phase, looking to expand, that it makes sense to come to Germany to look for new customers. And why it is so interesting to come to NRW, as said, so already central and dynamic, located in Europe. Of course, the B2B market potential is quite huge. within the medium-sized sector. We have more than 800,000 enterprises you could connect to, but also many multinational and international large companies, be it like Bayer, Henkel, ThyssenKrupp, Lanxess, you name it. In the end, also the talent pool is quite large over here. So if you want to hire young workforce, also reach much more people than only the Germans in the market, as said. This is yeah, the place to be. And as my last slide already for today is Ready, Steady, Grow with us in North Rhine-Westphalia. So if you have any questions, be it in today's webinar, please use the Q&A function all the time. Then we try to answer it during the presentation of my colleague, also afterwards. And if you even have after the webinar today some questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We're looking forward to any kind of request you might have. And now I'm handing over to my colleague Carolina, so that she can tell you a little bit more about opportunities and chances, I guess, in COVID-19 times.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Christoph. First of all, welcome also from my side to today's webinar on the topic of opportunities through and after COVID-19. So my name is Carolina and I work also for NRW.INVEST, which is the economic development agency of North Rhine-Westphalia. I'm a project manager here at NRW.INVEST. And I'm in charge mainly for FDI monitoring reporting. So obviously, compared to the last few years, this year has been extremely interesting and also at the same time shocking to follow, as we really experience this global pandemic, and we can basically follow the impact that the pandemic has on our economy on a daily basis. So just to give you guys an impression on how COVID-19 has impacted Germany, we have around 200,000 cases of people that were tested positive of the virus, and around 7 million workers that were sent to short-time labor. So, and also the situation is quite difficult for some of our companies still. However, Germany was really able to remain stable and have a comparably low rate of unemployment. So compared to other EU countries, Germany has been a really solid economy here, and crisis is doing okay. So, but back to you guys. I'm really happy to welcome this international audience of startups to today's session. Really happy to be part of this pre-startup too and exchange insights with you on how to best deal with this current situation, and really also elaborate on opportunities that are out there on the market for you companies to profit or benefit from the current situation. So I'll just quickly share my screen with you and dive into the presentation. So I hope this works for you guys. So just to give you a brief idea on what I want to cover today, I quickly fly over this agenda. So I will start providing you with an overview or a quick glimpse on how COVID-19 has impacted the economy worldwide. I will provide you with an outlook on industries and sectors that have been most impacted by the pandemic, and obviously also share opportunities and trends with you. At the end of the session, we have a quick Q&A. So however, please feel free to use our Q&A function. Whenever you have questions, please feel free to drop them in our chat and we'll get back to you, obviously. So, yes, just sharing with you guys a glimpse on how COVID-19 has impacted trade, FDI, and M&A. You can see that world trade is expected to fall between 13 and 32%. That's a statement by the World Trade Organization. Obviously, it's still a bit early to really say by how much trade is impacted by COVID, but there's also already some significant changes within trade, and a significant decline on the amount on the trade volume that has been done over the first 9 months of this pandemic. Also within foreign direct investment, there's an estimate that investments will drop by about 40% in 2020. There's been projections already from different economists back in March and April who said FDI will drop by around 20 to 30%, but unfortunately those numbers had to be increased to around 40%. So obviously, investors are a bit hesitant right now. It's a really uncertain situation, and a lot of projects are on hold, but I'm pretty certain it's gonna resume in some time. And also, when it comes to cross-border merger and acquisitions, there's an overview that the trade volume or the M&A volume has been around $10 billion in February. The normal value of M&A activities is around 40 to 50 billion dollars, and obviously now governments are reassessing different industries, really have to dig into if a certain industry is really critical to a country and whether, or to the industry, and whether this should be really acquired by a foreign investor or whether this should not be allowed. Okay, so as you might guess, overall business registrations have been dropping significantly in recent months. This is a worldwide trend, and obviously a missing generation of new firms has significant implications for economic outcomes, notably employment. I just said in Germany, numbers are relatively stable, but worldwide, there's a lot of unemployment all over the world. So, startups have really emerged as key drivers of economic growth and job creation. And young firms account for about 20% of employment, but really do create almost half of new jobs across all OECD countries. So I'm really happy to see that many startups from around the world joining today's webinar, as it's a really critical part of our economy. So just on this slide, you can see an overview on how COVID-19 has impacted foreign direct investment over different years. So I compared 2018, 2019, and 2020, the first 3 quarters of each year. And you can see while 2018, 2019 have remained relatively stable, there's been even a 1% increase in FDI. There's been 20% decrease between 2019 and 2020, and even if you compare March, which is the month where the pandemic really reached global stage, there's even a more significant decrease in FDI numbers. And just to give you an overview on which regions have been most affected by this pandemic and where you see the biggest decline in the number of foreign direct investment projects, you can see that especially Asia Pacific and Western Europe have been hit the most or hit the hardest when it comes to a significant decline in FDI projects. So both have decreased by around 26%. I guess this is not really surprising, as Asia Pacific is really the origin of the virus, and Western Europe being one of the parts of the world where the virus spread pretty quick. So just to share with you also an overview, FDI projects went down, and this is a projection of greenfield projects until 2021. So there's a low, or we hit a low in May 2020, but as you can see, projects are again resuming. So numbers are increasing again. Investors are getting used to current situation or have more a better overview on how to deal with the situation. So investments are increasing again. There are different projections. Obviously, some are more pessimistic, some are more optimistic, but I think the numbers, yeah, it will be difficult to reach the same level as in 2019. I think until we hit the numbers in 2019, I would give it a 3-4 year period until we really hit that level again. So just to share with you also an overview on how FDI projects have performed in Germany. You see again a comparison between numbers in 2019 and 2020. Obviously again here with a sharp drop in the first quarter, and with the numbers slowly increasing again in May to June, and yeah, with an upward trend again. But if you compare the numbers, it's still relatively low to what we were used to see. So as you might guess, there are industries that have been more impacted by COVID-19 than other industries. Just take tourism as an example, or entertainment. Those are really industries that have been hit the hardest by the pandemic. And obviously those industries still struggle with the current situation. No one really knows when the situation will get back to normal, when we'll be able to plan our vacation again the way we used to, how will trade fair activities look like in the future. It's all really pending, and those companies active in these industries really have to rethink their business model or have to stop their business. But luckily, there are also some industries that just experience a minimal decline in numbers and FDI numbers. So there's a fair amount of stable industries like agriculture, consumer goods, automotive, financial services, all those sectors where there's always demand even throughout the crisis. And obviously, there's also industries that have experienced a significant growth during the or due to COVID-19. These industries include e-commerce, digital technologies, cybersecurity. I just said the more companies are switching to a virtual workforce, the more they'll need service providers to really protect their data. We have closed down a lot of schools. I think worldwide, a lot of parents are doing homeschooling. So there are many opportunities for companies active in the edtech sector, so online education. Also, when it comes to smart logistics, our habits have changed. So during lockdown, people were looking out for other options. We're looking to not go to the store, but rather have something ordered online. There is a big opportunity for firms active in online video, in gaming. People really stay at home, have more time, really use not only games to play, but also for education. And a lot of companies have switched more to a digital solution with also looking at Industry 4.0, using artificial intelligence, and also focusing on the environment. So reassessing clean tech and enterprise software. So I'm really happy you guys represent startups from mostly intertech, mobility, logistics, which are all sectors that are relatively stable throughout this crisis, or even really benefit from this current crisis. So I want to take the opportunity to share with you guys some of the developments that we've seen here in our state also with respect to this. So I just have two examples for e-commerce, or let's say commerce, logistics. We have an online supermarket called Picnic. It's a Dutch startup, and it's one of the examples of companies that really benefited from the crisis. Picnic had to expand due to the Corona crisis. It's a online supermarket, and the company's orders have more than doubled during that time. So forcing the company to really expand their current locations, start with new distribution hubs, because there's always forecasts, but I think no one could forecast this pandemic. And so this company was really running at the limit, and is really successful here in NRW, using the market power, using all the location as a really good hub, and there's an upward trend. More and more people are switching to ordering food online or groceries. And also we have the French parcel service provider, DPD. It's not a startup, it's really big corporate, but just to give you an example, they just opened their largest parcel distribution center here in the NRW. And due to the pandemic, they have hit their targets within weeks instead of months. So there might be already plans for further expansion. And also just more prominent examples on how COVID-19 has impacted also the sector of digital technologies. We're currently using Zoom, and just to give you a brief idea, in December 2019, Zoom had around 10 million users. Now, obviously, this number has increased tremendously to over 300 million users. And also solutions like MS Teams, they had risen their number of users from around 12 million to over just 44 million users within a week. So that's pretty impressive. And also Slack, within 2 weeks, they were able to grow from 10 million users to 12.5 million users. So that's a significant growth, and people are more and more switching to home office. So they depend on solutions like this, and this is the right opportunity for companies active in the field of providing these solutions. And there's also good examples within the healthcare industry. So these are two examples. Yameda, they do, actually they do ranking of doctors. So you can look online, type in your search for your doctor and see what reviews he gets. But as more people were afraid to really show up to the doctor, they added or expanded their portfolio, and now they do have a huge demand for video consultation hours on the platform. And actually their consultation hours have increased tenfold within a month. And same goes for teleclinic. Also, their number of patients requesting online consultation with their doctors, they have more than doubled within a month. So as you can see, COVID-19 will really change our habits, and I believe this is going to be sustainably. So there's not a trend that COVID will impact our daily life. Just until the pandemic, but for me also until the pandemic will be over. So there's different trends that for me are going to remain, which are really contactless solutions. I think we all got used to paying contactless with our mobile phones, especially in Germany, where new technologies take a lot of time to really hit the market or really have a big audience and a big amount of users. We were kind of forced to pay contactless and switch to our usual cash to this payment, and I think this will really remain. Also, virtual workforce, there are big players in the market. They're like Facebook, Twitter, that are really sending the entire workforce to work from home. They don't even need the workforce to be at the office. So there's going to be a shift in the business models as well. And people think more about local supply chains. And also companies will start to rethink their strategy and their sourcing strategy. So during lockdown, obviously, there's been a lot of delay within all supply chains, depending on what industry you're in. This is really crucial and really, really expensive to maintain. So there's going to be a trend of also a lot of reshoring and nearshoring. So manufacture around the corner, I'd say, instead of really abroad, where in case of a pandemic, it's really hard to reach your production. So just to give you an idea on how Germany has managed the current crisis and what the government has done for companies to really fight this crisis, we have introduced a package. It's called the Economic Stimulus Package, which has been agreed by the federal government, and it's around 130 billion euros. And it's a package that includes a series of measures to promote economic growth and really investment in Germany. And foreign investors who plan to make an investment in Germany can benefit from financial support, especially in areas including mobility, medical products, everything around new around CO2 reduction, digitization, and artificial intelligence. So what the German government has done is really use this package to invest and push more digital products in the market and support companies that are active in this to use the momentum, use more innovation within the market. So while this might be more important or more interesting for corporates, there's also something Germany has done for startups. So Germany announced a 2 billion booster, let's say, to combat the impact of the coronavirus, and is providing around 2 billion euros that are directed specifically at the country's startups. So this initiative also includes venture capital investment to promote venture capital investment here in Germany and make really funding available for companies that need funding. So I know startups really face different challenges compared to corporates, and I would say most of you really engage in more high-risk activities. You guys face constraints in accessing funding. Probably you have a more formative relationship with your suppliers, with your customers, and also not to forget about the size of your team to really react on labor supply shocks. So there's a lot of new initiatives that have been created, and that the German government is really trying to focus on to help startups really perform well in Germany throughout the crisis. Because obviously after each crisis, startups were there to come up with new models, and in fact, even if the number of new business registration drops during a recession, there's a lot of successful innovative startups or businesses that have emerged from periods of crisis. So I know really prominent examples include Dropbox, Uber, Airbnb, WhatsApp, Pinterest. They were in fact all founded during or just after the financial crisis. And Alibaba, the biggest commerce company from China, they were just founded during the SARS outbreak. So you can see, or it really confirms that periods of crisis are not only a challenge, but they also provide new opportunities for entrepreneurs or startups that really help address difficulties that we face, and whether it's health conditions or economic conditions. So what's interesting for you here in NRW, and I'm sure this has been covered also in previous sessions, but just to give you an outlook, NRW maybe not as prominent as other regions, but it really has become one of the most important startup hubs in Germany. I just want to share with you a few facts on this. So NRW, our state, is really a B2B place. Startups that are located in the state have, or they generate around 73.4% of their revenue in the B2B sector. So we have a really strong industrial economy here. And also NRW stands for artificial intelligence. So for around 20% of the startups in NRW, AI has a really big impact on their business model. And NRW is becoming a hotspot really for venture capitalists. So the investment of venture capitalists and startups is supposed to grow to €500 million, and thus really it's 5 times more the investment amount that was available back in 2017. And just to remind you, NRW hosts really prominent events, especially interesting for you guys, I guess, the Exec InsurTech. We have the Pirate Summit, we have the Digital Demo Day, we have the Ruhr Summit. There's a lot of events going on, and covered already, I guess, in some of the series, there's a really strong ecosystem here for startups. So really a strong support system with different digital hubs, different partners that are here to support your business and help you grow and find the first steps. So we're more than happy also a state economic development agency to have a conversation with you, understand your business, and really see where we can support you. So I think I'll just switch to our Q&A session. I'll switch back to Christoph.
Yeah, thanks so much. So now all the guys out there, so it's your time. So to answer some questions, to fire over some questions, and we're going to answer, of course, those questions. So use the Q&A function anytime. So This is your chance. I will also post some of our contact information afterwards if you would like to get in touch with us after the webinar, and if there's something you would like to discuss bilateral, for example, then also feel free to reach out to us anytime. But yeah, so now it's your time. Yeah, to come along with some questions you might have, even if it might be connected to opportunities and chances, but also if you have some other questions. So yeah, please use the time to reach out to us now, and use the Q&A function, of course. Makes it for us also a little bit easier. Still no questions. Come on, guys. There should be something, at least. Yeah, regarding doing business over here. Oh, first, there's one. Yeah, we got one of the first questions, so I will yeah, read it out loud that everybody can read it, understand it. So what is the projection of IP from the beginning of the startup project? So is there anybody in our small round today who could answer this quite more or less directly? So regarding the protection of IP from the beginning of the project over here for a startup. So if anybody wants to jump in. Otherwise, yeah, of course, we can get back to you at the end of the webinar. So please, yeah, drop us a mail afterwards. What I can tell you from our standpoint is that, of course, in the European Union, and as Germany, one of the member states here, that IP is very much covered and protected on a very high level from the very first day you're going into business over here. Of course, I can refer here back to our legal seminar the other day, which will be also made available online on the Startup Germany website. They dealt also a little bit about that topic, but you can be assured that from the very first day you're going into business, be it with a German company, be it with a European company, that your IP will be protected. But of course, you have to take the legal measurements into mind. It might be some contracts you have to set up beforehand, also to make sure that the IP stays with you, especially when going into projects with larger companies or others. So always be safe on the legal side. But nevertheless, so I can guarantee you that on the IP side, in the European Union, as so in Germany, you will be also, of course, be quite well protected from the very first point onwards. I'm just checking if there are other questions which might be fitting for the whole audience, because otherwise, yeah, some of the questions we might answer afterwards directly to the yeah, startups asking their questions. And as said, also reach out to us anytime. I will post my mail address and my LinkedIn. So if there is something which pops up to your mind after the webinar or in the next few days, so yeah, this might be the chance also to reach out to us. Yeah, making it a little bit easier for us to answer that bilateral then afterwards. So if there isn't anything left, I don't have any more questions over here. Then, yeah, maybe some concluding words from my side, and maybe some other questions might pop up in the next few sentences then. So what my colleague also mentioned before, and what I see dealing on a day-to-day basis with startups from abroad, is that there wasn't any time beforehand where it was much more easier to get into touch, especially when you're focusing onto the B2B market, be it the large corporates, be it medium-sized and small enterprises over here. If you're participating, for example, at the Startup Germany tour at the end of October, you're also going to meet those companies. But what we encountered over the COVID-19 pandemic so far is that a different mindset, or a huge change in the mindset of the German companies could be yeah, watched, so to say, as they switched from non-digital models. So it was, yeah, please come over here, please visit us, then we can talk about business and all that other stuff. and making it, especially for startups from very far abroad, quite not that easy to get into interaction with corporates, with companies over here. But this has changed quite dramatically, as said, especially in the B2B market during the pandemic. So it's now more or less quite easy to have a lot of meetings with German companies, as they're quite used to the technology. But on the other hand, also, which came along that, as we are using now this kind of digital technologies more or less each and every day, that they also found out during that pandemic situation, especially the medium-sized enterprises, that there is a very high need for digitalization. So within their company, be it in kind of processes, in the machinery, in some other kind of software stuff. So depending, of course, in which sector you are dealing as a startup, definitely there might be a very good connection point, yeah, with German companies, medium-sized enterprises, also networks, clusters, you name it, whatever you want to. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if there's anything we might help you with. Yeah, I don't see any more questions. The thing about the company shipping something to Germany, I wrote you your private message that you please reach out to me privately, because then we can cover those, yeah, an in-depth talk afterwards, making it easier, because that's not so necessary for all the others out there. And otherwise, if there's nothing coming in, I guess we're done for today. Looking to the host, Dominik, if there's anything from your side left.
No, everything's fine. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah. No, there's nothing more coming in. So this is your last chance. Otherwise, as said, there are many ways to connect with us, also with the specialized colleagues working for your country. But as said, also feel free to reach out to me, and I will forward your request to the responsible colleague over here. So yeah, and otherwise, hopefully you're all participating in the tour end of October, giving you also a huge chance to get a more deeper grasp onto the market over here in NRW, also in Germany, but especially getting into contacts, yeah, with companies, with medium-sized enterprises, learning more, of course, about the ecosystem, which is quite lovely over here, and helping especially international startups quite a lot when coming over here and looking to get embedded. So yeah, looking forward to meet some of you again at the end of October.
Yeah, and if you have any questions regarding the tour, just contact me or Christoph or Carolina. Hope to see you again next month at the end of October. Yeah. It's your turn to end the webinar, I think.
Yeah, otherwise then, if there are no more questions coming in, also a very warm thank you again from our side to being part of this webinar today. I hope, yeah, we could cover a little bit of the topics you were quite interested in, but as said, everything is recorded. So also the legal session, also the startup ecosystem, and many more to come will be made available online after the webinar. So it's also your chance, if you want to catch up, or some of your friends still want to listen to what we told and presented today or the other days, then feel free to reach out to the website. And yeah, otherwise, if there's nothing left, then yeah, that's it, and we can close the session for today.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you. Have a good evening, and thanks to NRW.INVEST for supporting us, and see you at the next webinar or on Startup Germany tour at the end of October. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.